Tonight on Free Minds TV, plenty of people are pushing back against the federal government. The state of Virginia asserting its rights under the Interstate Commerce Clause, plus Jesse Ventura body slams the TSA. We'll also be talking about speed camera tickets being recalled in Canada, 141,000 of them. That plus a whole lot more tonight on Free Minds TV.
Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 191 of Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, but we're back, and it's Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Yeah, we've took a little break there. I guess we didn't have one around the holidays, but we had some real nasty snowstorms around here that dumped feet and feet and feet of snow on us. And
even in New England, we do sometimes cancel events because of snow.
Sometimes people can't get to the studio to open it up. So it was... We are happy to be back, though. We have a lot to be talking about here. Some pushback against the federal government, which is definitely nice because anyone who's watched the show before, Nick, knows the theme. And it is about thinking outside the box of ways to reduce this over-oppressive federal government, decentralizing it, as well as local governments, state governments as well.
Yeah, they all suck, but decentralizing government's usually a good way to keep it from growing too large.
Freeing people as much as possible and challenging people to not accept the norms that they're being taught by society. You know, look at things from different perspectives.
Or the norms that are being forced on different states that have different cultures by the federal government. And that's what we see here in the United States today. We see, well, basically one set of laws that govern just about everything, from farming to drug policy to gun laws. Just about anything that you could name is regulated by some federal bureaucracy or by laws passed by the U.S. Congress. How do they get away with that when the U.S. Constitution says this is the power that they actually gave to Congress? Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes, among the several states.
And from that, we have the federal government taking over everything.
So the federal government has legitimate constitutional authority to regulate trade with other nations. They can impose tariffs, things like that, when we're trading with Canada or England or Russia. They also do have the authority under this section of the Constitution to regulate trade between, say, New Hampshire and Vermont, or California and Florida.
Okay, fair enough, Nick, but what it's turned into, as you stated, is the same laws, this huge umbrella government, the same laws being the same for everyone. Why does it make sense for the same exact laws to be in place in, say, Hawaii as Massachusetts or New Hampshire or California? Why should they all be exactly the same? What's the point in having different states if you're all going to be treated exactly the same and this federal law is going to supersede anything the state wants to do?
Yeah, it's a very good question. That's why it's supposed to be a federal government, not a national government. A federal system implies that you have independent states. They're part of a federation, but still retain
a voluntary part. They're voluntary.
Right.
And that's the point, is they're supposed to...
Well, now we're getting into the old federalist, anti-federalist debate almost.
Okay.
But
anyways.
Even so, what happens today is that drug laws, things like somebody being arrested for, say, growing marijuana plants in their house if they get charged with federal charges, or somebody maybe manufacturing a firearm that's not compliant with ATF regulations, even if those things, those activities, never leave their house or their shop, let alone cross a state line where it actually becomes constitutionally something that Congress can regulate, they're using the Interstate Commerce Clause. Remember, inter means between. They're using the Interstate Commerce Clause to regulate those things, to prohibit things like that. At least one state, the state of Virginia, I guess technically they're a commonwealth, there's much difference, is pushing back. The Virginia House of Delegates passed HB 1438, the Intrastate Commerce Act. Intra means within, so commerce that takes place within the Commonwealth of Virginia doesn't cross outside of it into another state. All goods produced, this is coming from the from the text of the legislation. All goods produced or manufactured in the Commonwealth, when such goods are held, maintained, or retained in the Commonwealth, are not subject to federal law, federal regulation, or the constitutional power of the United States Congress to regulate interstate commerce.
Well,
so basically, Virginia is saying that federal regulations that apply to commerce taking place solely within Virginia do not apply. At least that's the declaration being made by Virginia.
And that sounds like that was the original intent anyways, when the states gave Congress this power. It sounds like from the original, can you read that original piece again of what
of the U.S. Constitution?
Yes.
Congress shall have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states. Remember, among means between several.
So Vermont, New Hampshire, trading and stuff.
Yes,
stuff going across the border.
Trade between different states, not trade within a given state in the Union. And with the Indian tribes, which doesn't, I guess they're reservations, but it doesn't.
Seems pretty cut and clear. So it sounds like Virginia is trying to take this back, which, you know, if people study the Constitution.
Okay, when you say Virginia's trying to take it back.
That might sound bad. Okay.
a lot of people do point out the Civil War analogy. There's no reason to. We're not debating slavery here.
We're talking about the Constitution.
Right. And we're not even debating secession, although I don't think that the Civil War necessarily answers anything about the morality of secession or the founding intent of the way the Union was constructed. But all those things aside, we're not talking about the Civil War. We're not talking about the issues of 1861. We're talking about issues 150 years later. And you know, that's basically all the people in the camp that don't want to see things like this succeed can say is, oh, well, then you're just like the Confederates. Because they don't, I believe that most people, whether they're in positions of power or they just have a different political philosophy, they feel very uncomfortable arguing for a more centralized system of government in the United States that clearly is not constitutional.
Right. So all these people out there that are mad at us right now because, oh, you're trying to take it back to the Civil War and secessionists, which, you know, as you said, Nick, personally, 50 different states, different countries versus the federal system we have, I'll take that, but because I've given up on the federal government. But that's not even what we're talking about here. We're just talking about returning to the Constitution and what it says. If we're not going to follow it, why not throw it away? Burn it. It's a relic. I mean, if we're going to be treating this as something like, oh, that was valid 200 years ago, but not today. Times have changed. Society's changed. Well, throw the thing away. Stop pretending we're the freest country in the world and preaching it. If you're just going to say, oh, it's a relic. That made sense 200 years ago, but not today anymore. Okay, be honest. Throw the thing away and be honest about the type of government we have. Stop pretending freest country, land of the free, home of the brave, if you're not going to follow the document, the piece of paper, the document that puts it that way, that makes it that way, that made this country the freest country.
Yeah. And it's a legal document. It's basically a legal contract, even though no one alive today signed it. But effectively, it's a legal document. It binds. Remember, it's the only thing binding in the U.S. Constitution. It's really binding against the federal government. So it's not telling the American people to do anything. These are restrictions placed on the federal government. Never do you see a legal contract interpreted based on what it might mean today if you were to apply different wording and different standards and different, you know, a whole different outlook on the way something in the contract ought to be. A contract means what it meant when it was entered into. That's just the way it is. It doesn't change 5 years down the line. You don't start to argue about the meaning of the words in your mortgage or something like that, saying, well, I don't think interest actually means interest above principal. I mean, you could try to argue it any way you want, but nowhere do we really see this done very successfully except with the U.S. Constitution.
Yeah. So I'm just asking for honesty here, Nick. That's all I want. I want either for people to admit that they no longer want the Constitution anymore, throw it out, and then stop all the BS about...
Well, be more clear, because then we know, no,
right.
We don't have a constitutional
government. Be honest about this.
And it'd be clear that we don't have a constitutional
Stop pretending
government.
that we're so free out there. Stop pretending that we're the better nation than everyone else because we give everyone personal liberties and people are free to open businesses and stuff and sell what they want, because they're not.
They're not that much more free than, say, Canada or New Zealand or Australia.
We don't follow the Constitution that has supposedly makes us all free, although a lot of people out there, some of the smaller government types would say people are just free and it has nothing to do with a piece of paper, Constitution, laws, whatever. Anyways, I'm talking...
I would generally agree, but...
Sure. But for argument's
But a
sake,
piece of
with the big
paper that's
masses,
followed definitely helps carry
Sure.
that out.
Just get honesty here. Throw it out or start following it. And I applaud what Virginia is doing here because, it would fundamentally change a lot of things. A lot of people sometimes wonder, why did we need a constitutional amendment to prohibit alcohol some 70, 80 years ago? Yet, when we decided to outlaw marijuana and cocaine and all the other drugs out there, it was nothing. It was just an act of Congress, right? They just said, no, this is illegal now on the federal government. Shouldn't we needed constitutional amendments for all of those? No, because we quit following the Constitution. They invoked the Interstate Commerce Clause to make all these drugs illegal, even though they weren't crossing state boundaries. And we'll talk about someone who says, "What? We're on drugs? No, we've got to keep fighting this." Well, go to some of our archives, and we talk extensively about the war on drugs, why it's a complete and utter failure, and how repealing these drug laws is actually really the way to better society and make people free. Anything else on this, Nick, before we move on? I've got some more people who are pushing back up against the federal government, too. Some celebrities in the news.
No, I mean, we'll have to see what comes of what happened in Virginia.
Yeah, I'm sure the federal government will crush whatever they do. They don't want any of that
Well, you never
stuff.
know. It could lead, if other states do it, it could actually lead to something.
It would actually require people really standing up to the federal government.
I'm still waiting for the feds to just kind of go bankrupt and become ineffectual, and then we'll let the states maybe try to sort it out on their own.
Well, speaking of pushing back, you mentioned it, that Jesse Ventura, former governor of Minnesota, he's in the news. Why? Because he's very upset with the TSA. Former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura sued the Department of Homeland Security and the Transportation Security Administration on Monday. In other words, he filed the paperwork, alleging full-body scans and pat-downs at airport checkpoints violate his right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Ventura is asking a federal judge in Minnesota to issue an injunction ordering officials to stop subjecting him to, quote, warrantless and suspicious scans and searches. The lawsuit, which also names Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, is that how you say it? Yep. Anyway, stupid bureaucrat, and TSA Administrator John Pistol as defendants, argues that the searches were unwarranted and unreasonable intrusions on Governor Ventura's personal privacy and dignity, and are a justifiable cause for him to be concerned for his personal health and well-being. According to the lawsuit, Ventura received a hip replacement in 2008, and since then, his titanium implant has set off metal detectors at airport security checkpoints. The lawsuit said that prior to last November, before the body scans, officials had used a non-invasive handheld wand to look for secondary security measures, other bombs and stuff he might be carrying. But when Ventura set off the metal detector in November, he was instead subjected to body pat-down and was not given the option of a scan with a handheld wand or an exemption for being frequent traveler, the lawsuit stated. Finally here, the lawsuit said that pat-downs, quote, exposed him to humiliation and degradation through unwanted touching, gripping, and rubbing of his intimate body parts. It also states, goes through that there's 500 body scanners now in 78 airports. I think last time we reported on a TSA story just, a couple months ago, there were only 200 and something. So these things are spreading. The next year, we're going to have over 1,000. They're going to be frequent. Right now, not everybody is subject to these body scanners, but, as they get more of them, it's just going to be, instead of every 10 people, I don't know what it is that goes through, more and more people are going to be subject to either the body scanners or these invasive pat-downs. I know this is no longer in the news. People have quit talking about it, but I think it's important to keep hammering on this. I think it's important to keep bringing this up because remember back in November when this was a big deal and people cared, it was on the front page of every story? It's forgotten about now. At least Ventura stirring the waters a little bit.
Yeah. Well, he's good at that. Jesse Ventura
yeah,
definitely
he
not
also,
one to shy away from controversy.
He's all into government conspiracies. If anyone's seen his television show Conspiracy Theory, they'd understand a little bit more. He's not in love with big government.
Governor of a state, but
it's a big controversy when he won way back in the day. And I mean, I don't.
Well,
agree
he wasn't as big into the conspiracy theories then.
No.
Publicly.
Well, but he was more of a small-minded guy than most of the politicians out there. At least.
He did reduce government somewhat, and he made government somewhat more accountable out there. But
hey, what are you going to do? It's in the system.
Yeah, he as far as U.S. governors, I would consider voting for Jesse Ventura.
Oh, compared to the other,
I didn't even agree with him on a lot of the
1.5 choices
conspiracy stuff, but I would.
Who knows? I mean, I'm glad that he's bringing it up because he's a high-profile figure. I mean, everybody else has just been laughed at. Some people have been given huge tens of $1,000 fines for refusing to go through some of these invasive procedures. And now everyone's just laying down, doing absolutely nothing about it. I did want to mention, I know we talked about it on the radio show, for some people only watch the TV show and vice versa. Last time we reported on this, I think it was on Free Minds Radio, we talked about a report that came out that these body scanners and these pat-down procedures do not even protect against the explosive incendiary devices that may be going through security, such as some of the plastic explosives that would just be shoved into a body cavity and then later taken out anyways. So what they are busting, small amounts of marijuana from people trying to take drugs on vacations rather than trying to buy them when they get to Honolulu or something. Instead of trying to go some back alley and some sketchy drug dealer, people are taking their drugs with them on airplanes. And the TSA is saying that this is a success. Yes, busting people, subjecting anyone who wants to fly to these procedures, or at least the risk of these procedures, that's a success. Yes, it doesn't matter that they're not even good for detecting explosive devices that could just be shoved into unspeakable regions of the body. That doesn't matter. I'm not going to repeat whatever I think you just said. But that's the TSA. That's their success. Busting small amounts of marijuana, tens of thousands, millions of dollars invested. Thousands, millions of people's privacy being invaded. But it's successful because a few small-time marijuana users have been arrested. Yeah. That's what your country is doing to you, people. Not to mention that in the last report, I also mentioned in the last report the Homeland Security is talking about putting these in train stations and talking about possible roving.
Well, and that's a slippery slope that privacy advocates and people like us were talking about, and it was dismissed as somewhat ridiculous a few years ago. But there really is talk of the roving scanners.
Yeah. Pull up to a bar, everybody out, walk through the scanner. And what are they finding? They're not going to be looking for terrorists. They're going to be looking for people with illegal weapons. I'm hoping, I'm not that confident in the court system anymore, but I would hope that the court, it's a sign that some things are, you still have to offer some justification for search. Safety, man.
I don't know.
Terrorism.
To just random, and we are at the point where it could happen. Yeah.
Why wouldn't it?
They could just search a bar.
If you're looking for the logical end of this, it's more and more police state, more and more power. There's multi-billions of dollars invested in this. You know that these body scanners, they're not cheap. They cost a lot of money. Guess who's pushing for this? The same people who own the technology, who are making money off this, are pushing this stuff through. So, follow the dollar signs. Follow the logical conclusion. More of these popping up in airports, then the train stations, then some roaming ones, and before you know it, well, we're already in a police state, but it's just getting worse.
Yeah, it's certainly not getting better.
And it doesn't even work is the point, Nick.
No,
if a real terrorist wanted to do stuff, by the way, most terrorists, at least the ones here that we've heard about in the news, completely dumb, low IQs, barely can function in life. The majority of them are recruited by undercover FBI agents, undercover Homeland Security agents. They go and find some stupid ignoramus and convince him to go try to set off a bomb.
The mission is to blow yourself up. It seems like most intelligent people would come up with a plan, if they're going to be a terrorist, where they blow up the people that they want to kill without blowing themselves up. Seems like most intelligent people figure out the whole don't attach the bomb to your body because there are other ways to do it.
That's why I'm not scared of terrorists, Nick. They're all dumb. They're all dummy, dum-dums.
So far, they have been pretty dumb.
I'm not a terrorist, but I have much better ideas than those dum-dums.
Yeah, but they're... Oh, I'm glad you said that publicly.
Oh, come on! Any thinking person goes, the best way to fight is to blow myself up. Oh, yeah. I'm the only one who's thought of other ways.
I guess.
Come on, you want to blow up an airplane, take a few years, become the baggage boy, and Load the bottom of the plane
Throw
with
in the
bombs.
bombs on.
Oh, look at those people being scared. I'm filling the bottom of the plane with bombs.
And those guys have a special badge that lets them out onto the
Oh,
the
it's
tarmac.
ridiculous. Security theater at its very best.
So. They don't. I don't even think they search them that hard.
No, they don't.
Bomb on the plane. Bomb on the plane.
God, it's a joke, and you guys feel safe. Some people really feel safer. The majority of Americans feel safer with it this way.
I don't understand why you would feel unsafe because of the risk of terrorism in the first place.
Yeah. You have
Your odds of being killed, granted, 9/11 was a terrible thing, killed a few thousand people. That was 10 years ago. If you look at your statistically the odds of being killed by a terrorist, even if we were having a 9/11 every year, even if we were having one every 3 months,
one every week,
the odds of you dying from preventable diseases that you can actually do something about in your own life, things like diabetes, heart disease, lung cancer, those kinds of things, they're way higher. Even if we were having a 9/11 every 2 or 3 months. So your risk of dying in a terrorist attack or knowing someone who's killed in a terrorist attack, it's so low that you shouldn't bother worrying about it. Worrying is bad for your health. And your health is probably what's going to kill you.
Oh, we did report on a story one time about people having heart attacks whenever the government, remember,
the alert level
would go to red, and then there would be all these people having heart attacks. Oh no!
Well, I remember.
They're gonna kill us.
I think people got used to it after a while, but in the early days after September 11th, whenever that thing hit red, people would be freaking out.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
It's red.
It just makes me feel people are stupid, Nick. They're so worried about these high-profile emotional stuff.
People are driven by emotions. I don't know if it's stupidity, but people aren't terribly rational about things, especially things like danger and death. I mean, people just, they're not that
I think that not sorting
rational.
through emotions it's a critical part of living in this society. If you can't sort through emotions
or
and
living,
critically,
period.
Well, especially in this complex of a society. Back in the day, emotions take hold. I'm mad at you. You take my girl. I smash you, and now I am dominant. That's survival, Nick. So emotions worked back for caveman days. But we live in a much more complex society. And if you're just going with herd mentality because you're emotionally scared about what some dummy says on the TV, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that really works in this society. I'm going to classify you as dumb. Okay, we got to move on, Nick. I've angered all the dummies out there who are upset.
That is, yeah, I think you're right, Dallin.
It makes me feel better as a person, Nick. This is my venting. This is my therapy. I have to bite my tongue at work and throughout society to get along with people and play nice, and so this is my therapy. So I don't have to vent in front of my family members and annoy them and stuff. Here's my therapy. Anyways,
it's a very healthy outlet, actually. It's probably adding years to our lives.
Yeah, people can just switch the channel if they don't want to listen to me, right?
But actually, I think it's therapeutic sometimes. I mean, we probably piss a lot of you off and you just hate us, or maybe you're just flipping through the channels and you don't like the show. But I bet some of you actually find this therapeutic too.
Yeah,
or at least
someone agrees with you. Well, a lot of people are like, oh, wow, so someone else is rational in this world and can see through all this emotional BS that the regular media is feeding us. Yeah, they might not agree on every view. Of course not. I don't agree on half the views I expose on this show. But, it's a different way of looking at things. It makes me feel better than just, oh, yes, red or blue. Oh, yes. I need to look at the ice cream cone from the side or from the top. It's either a triangle or a circle. I can no longer ever look at it from a three-dimensional angle. Oh, anyways, we do need to move on. We've got a couple more stories. We want to get to the gun gesture of the first grader getting suspended, as well as first the speed camera story. We've got a few minutes, so let's move through them quickly.
All right. We're going to Edmonton, Alberta. That city announced on Monday that it would give refunds to motorists after it was discovered that speed enforcement cameras were reading pretty much every vehicle on the road for a given period of time as traveling at 89 miles per hour, even when it was pretty clear they were on roads where that wouldn't even really be practically possible, taking curves and things. 141,729 tickets are affected by this offer for a refund, basically recalling these speed camera tickets. I think it was from November, some date in November to January. So it was a couple months.
They got that many tickets in a couple months? Ooh.
Yeah. Well, but that's because I think
pop.
I think it was just reading cars at 89 miles per hour. Because Edmonton's not that huge, and the 141,000 tickets
Everybody
is a lot.
who drove on the road gets a ticket.
$17 million is what those tickets total. Canadian or U.S., it doesn't really matter anymore.
I wonder how much of the
About the
money's
same.
been spent already.
And this isn't, they said that, I don't think I have it right here. They said that only like 100 and something thousand of the tickets had been paid. So most of them were paid. I don't know how many they spent. But they did say that there was a much bigger case in Victoria, Australia, where they figured out that there were faulty relays, and I guess there was interference that messed up the readings. And they had to refund 26 million Australian dollars, which are almost like real dollars.
You know, Nick, and imagine if every one of these actually went to court, because a lot of the states out there, different countries have it differently, require you to pay large amounts of money if you want to actually fight a speed camera or a red light ticket in court. It varies from state to state, country to country. So how many other tickets out there are completely invalid? So just another example of governments their best ripping out the people.
Right. That's one reason not to like speed enforcement cameras is computers can be wrong sometimes.
Are often wrong, and then the people behind them programming them. Man, we've reported on so many different cases where they're just completely fraudulent what they're doing with some of the speed cameras. You know, rolling, like making the stop line back so far that you could never reasonably stop and see traffic.
There have been some videos that come out of Arizona that make it look pretty clear.
Show people stop and the camera's going off anyways. But then people don't challenge them because it costs too much money, so they just figure, well, I'll just pay the ticket.
And they don't have time. People have jobs, people have families. They don't have time to go to traffic court to fight over $50.
Yeah, and especially when they're going to charge you $150 just for your day in court, or I've seen cases of over $400.
No, it's just extortion. Is all it is. When the
right to a speedy trial, yet you have to pay $400. Innocent until proven guilty, but pay $400 to have your day in court over a ticket that's only 100 and something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's extortion.
Not to mention the fact that how can it be points on your license when it's a camera taking a picture of a license plate? Who's to prove who's driving the vehicle?
Sometimes they show the faces. A lot of times they don't.
So many different reasons why they're BS. I don't think they have them in New Hampshire. I mean, we've still fought against them.
Yes, I
fought against them.
I don't know if they're. I don't know if they're actually prohibited by law. I think they might be.
Currently they still are prohibited by law. One last story, real quick. We've reported on other stories similar to this, so we won't really spend too much time on it, but it's happened again. It happens all the time. Sometimes they make it to the news. But this coming from Oklahoma City, the mother of a first-grade boy disciplined after making a gun gesture with his fingers at school says the district overreacted. Linda Fox says the principal at Parkview Elementary called her earlier this month to say her 7-year-old boy had misbehaved during a school assembly by pretending to shoot a gun. He was given in-school suspension for the rest of the day and threatened with severe punishment if he does it again. Why is this? I remember playing cops and robbers when I was a youngster, Nick, and I did the hand gestures. I did it.
You can't do that stuff anymore.
Why?
I don't know. There's this whole focus on identifying problem kids early. I mean, it's an overreaction to things like school shootings and these cases of bullying that you hear about, which I don't think even happen that much anymore.
We're out of time. FreeMindsTV.com. In the meantime, until next week, it's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Log on to our website and send us your feedback. Have a good one.